Hi, Bill from CJ Pony Parts. If you own a 64 through 73 Mustang and it's equipped with an automatic transmission like our 71 convertible, one of the most common problems you're going to find is excess play in the shifter. Not only is this an annoyance for normal driving, it creates a safety issue because you have trouble getting your Mustang into the proper gear. Many times, the shifter is actually not damaged and can simply be fixed by replacing the plastic bushings that hold the shifter into the bucket. Today, we're going to show you how to rebuild your shifter in your automatic Mustang. For this installation, you'll need a jack and jack stands or a lift, Phillips head screwdriver, 3/32 Allen key, 9/16 wrench, 1/4 inch ratchet, 3/16 socket, 1/4 inch socket, 3/8 socket, 9/16 socket, a couple extensions, a marker, and safety glasses. Here you can see how much play our shifter has. This is actually in park, but we can move it back and forth as well, side to side. First step in rebuilding the shifter is to remove the shifter housing from the car. To do that, we're going to start by disconnecting the shifter linkage underneath. We're going to move the shifter arm from the transmission linkage, which is located right here. Some of your early models, you'll be able to pull out a clip and slide it right out. On this model, we're going to bolt it from this side here, so we're going to mark the linkage before we remove it. So remove the bolt and we'll disconnect it from the linkage. Before we move on to the interior, you want to disconnect the wiring harness for the shifter, which is found right up in here. Now that we're back in the interior, we're going to start by removing the shift handle from the shift lever. There's a small little retaining screw in the back here that you need to remove. Now we need to remove the console so we can access the shift plate to get the shifter out of the car. Now we're going to move the screws that hold the shifter plate to the transmission tunnel. Now we're going to move the 4 bolts that hold the shift bucket to the transmission tunnel. Now we can remove our stock shifter. Now that we have the shifter on a bench, we're going to start by removing this plate here to access the bottom of the shifter. We're going to remove the light bulb from the housing up here first. Then remove this lower nut. And we'll pry the lever off the arm. And remove the arm from the bucket. Normally at this point there'd be the remnants of some sort of a bushing in this opening on both sides. In our case, there's nothing whatsoever, which explains all the slop on our factory shifter. We can get the bucket cleaned up and install some new bushings. We're going to move the ground, then we'll remove our wiring harness. Move the lower seal, and we'll get this cleaned up before we reinstall it. Now that we get everything cleaned up, we're ready to begin reassembly. We noticed on our shift handle, our indicator is broken off, so we're going to go with this new piece from Scott Drake before we reassemble it. You'll need to remove this tiny metal plate, the original indicator, and install that on the Scott Drake piece before you put it back on the handle. Now we'll reinstall our wiring harness. Reinstall the ground. Now we're ready to install our new bushings. We're going to start by putting some grease in this opening here before we put the bushing in place. Just squeeze the bushing and slide it into place. Now we'll install the inner bushing. We're ready to reinstall our handle. We're going to start by putting some grease on the lever. Now we'll push the lever through the new bushings. Line up the handle. There we install the retaining nut. We'll reinstall the light bulb for our shifter. The light bulb, the bucket seal, and the shield here are all available new if you need to replace them. Ours are all in good shape, so we're going to stick with our originals. Reinstall the seal. And the last step is to install the lower shield. Make sure it goes under the indicator. And ready to reinstall our shifter back in our car. Now we're going to reinstall the shifter the same way we took it out. Start by fishing the harness down to the bottom. We're going to reinstall this trim plate. Then we can reinstall the console top plate. I'm going to make sure this opening in the push button is visible in the center of the T-handle when you reinstall it. That has to line up with this piece here to be able to shift the car properly. Once you determine the button works properly, we're going to retighten down the set screw. Before we go back underneath the car to hook up the shift linkage, make sure your shifter is in park. That'll be the easiest gear to find underneath the car. Now we'll fish the shift light back up here and reconnect it. Now we're back under the car. We left the shifter in park. You want to pull back on the shift linkage, make sure it is also in park, which it is, and then reinstall it on the stud. Lines up perfect with our marks, so now we're ready to tighten it back down. Our installation's finished. Before you get the car off the lift or off the jack stands, you want to make sure the shifter is indeed engaging properly with the transmission. Start the car, make sure the tires are off the ground, try reverse and drive. Start with reverse. Neutral. And now drive. Back in park. It's amazing the difference 2 plastic bushings make. Our shifter goes into gear exactly like it's supposed to. All of our play is completely gone. Installation should take you around an hour and a half. You'll be back on the road in no time.